Hey Reader fam, today I'm going to be sharing with you my thoughts, opinions, and feels on the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children book to movie adaptation. As many of you guys know, Miss Peregrine's is my all-time favorite book, and so I was pretty excited and nervous for this adaptation, and I just have to say that while it's very different, it's not unrecognizable. I went into this movie very open-minded. We already have the story that Ransom told us, which I adore, so going into this I knew I would get a fresh take on everything, and I can honestly say that I'm pretty dang satisfied with what we've been given. Obviously, I have issues with certain things, but I will get to that point within the discussion. It was incredible seeing the story that I love become a film, and I'm so excited to see what everyone thinks of it, whether they've read it or not. I'm just really interested to see the reaction it gets. I'm now going to be diving into a spoilery section where I just full-on discuss every aspect of the movie. So if you have not seen the movie, go see it. It's in theaters now. And if you have seen the movie, then let's discuss. This is my first movie discussion, so I'm kind of nervous here, but just know that I am not a movie critic at all, so I have no idea what I'm doing. I love how the title sequence at the beginning has kind of this build up towards the end of it. It's got this like haunting music and it's like building up to something, and then BAM! We have Florida scenery. We got Jacob doing a little voiceover. I'm not gonna lie, I really missed our iconic opening line that we have in the book. We didn't get that in the movie. I had just come to accept that my life would be ordinary when extraordinary things began to happen. That's such a fantastic first line. Why didn't this movie have that first line? It's okay, it's fine. I'm just a little bit salty. I feel like we kind of had a choppy start with this movie. It took a second for us to find our footing. Just a little bit of the acting at the beginning felt a little bit off to me. For example, when Jacob's on the phone with his grandfather, you just don't really feel the chemistry between Jacob and his grandfather in that moment. You don't really feel the connection between them at all. Grandpa, did you take your pills today? I did really like the addition of Shelley in the movie. Obviously, she's not a part of the book, but I liked her little role in the movie. She added a nice touch of humor in the beginning, which I really liked. The scene when we get to Abe's house was so beautifully haunting. From the fog to the silhouettes to the destroyed house, it just really set up this nice haunting feeling. And the score during that scene, just brilliant. Shelley's comedic one-liner here was great too. I got a 38 in my car, you wait there! When Jacob, which by the way, I'm gonna call him Jacob throughout this review. I know that his name in the movie is Jake, but he will forever be Jacob to me. Anyway, when Jake finds his grandfather and turns him over, I was just like, holy crap! His eyes were missing, and at first I was like, wait, there's something wrong with his face. Like, I didn't realize his eyes were missing, then I was like, holy crap, he ain't got no eyes. So freaking creepy. I just wasn't expecting to not have his eyes there when he was turned over. So I was kind of like, Murr! I adored the flashbacks to Jacob's childhood. I loved seeing baby Jacob. My heart was melting over the preciousness. That scene where Abe is sitting at the edge of Jacob's bed, telling him a bedtime story, looked just like the scene out of Ransom's book trailer. I died laughing at the boat scene into Wales. Jacob's dad points out the peregrine bird above, and he's like, oh, Peregrine, like the headmistress. Maybe that's her. Hey, Miss Peregrine, I'm Abe Portman's grandson. Don't crap on us, please. And his dad just has this horrified look on his face, as if Jacob actually believes that that's Miss Peregrine. It was great. The dad just added so much humor to this movie, and I loved it. I was so happy that Worm and McDirty Business were included in this movie because I just wasn't sure if they were going to be in the movie because I know that their characters aren't super important to the story, but I'm really glad that they made the cut. The abandoned children's home was just how I pictured it in my mind, and it was just so incredible seeing it in the movie. Again, I was brought back to Ransom's book trailer when Jacob's exploring the abandoned house. I was just like, holy crap, this looks just like Ransom's book trailer. I kind of like how they changed Jacob being exposed to the peculiar children for the first time. I mean, it's pretty dang similar to the book, but instead of Jacob chasing after Emma, they kind of guide him through the loop. You're dead. You're all dead. None of us are dead. Am I dead? I love that they included the crazy priest hole scene where Jacob goes back and he's just like climbing up the stairs, going up to his room, and then the manager goes off on him and they think that he's a spy. Millard causes all sorts of chaos and then Olive just lights the place up on fire. I died afterward when they're riding back to the children's home and Jacob's like, I'm special too! In the pub, everything was flying and breaking. I was doing it with my mind. No, that was me. Oh. Wait, Millard, are you naked? I loved how much sass Ava Green brought to Miss Peregrine's character. I always pictured Miss Peregrine as older, but I really loved Ava Green's interpretation of the character. She really brought some new spunk to Miss Peregrine, and I really liked it. I really think that the screenplay writer did a fantastic job of describing this world for people who haven't read the book and are going to see this film. I think that they will really understand everything that's happening. I think that they'll really understand the loops, the hollows, and whites, even though I don't think that they're called whites, and even though the whole Hollow and White's thing has kind of a different ideal in the movie. I kind of liked it though, and I think that it really worked well. I mean, don't get me wrong, all the eyeball scenes were disgusting, but it worked. I kind of loved how awkward Emma and Jacob's first like real interaction was. He's like tying the rope around her and he's just like, I'm tying a rope around a girl, oh my gosh. You see that little spark between them, but it's still a little bit of an awkward interaction. I was surprised by how Emma doesn't have as much of an emotional reaction when she finds out about Abe's passing. In the book, she's like devastated, but in the movie, she kind of already knows when Jacob arrives that Abe has passed on. I really loved Enoch's character in the movie. I mean, he's still kind of as annoying in the movie as he is in the book. I feel like he's less morbid in the movie though compared to the book, but he's still pretty morbid. All I gotta say is that I adored that creepy doll fight scene. It was A+. There were just so many little details throughout this movie that I just adored. For example, I loved Olive heating up the tea with her hands, which, can I just point out the fact that the switched powers between Emma and Olive didn't bother me at all throughout the movie? Like, obviously that's not how it is in the books, and how dare they, but it really wasn't that big of a deal. You can disagree with me, but I really didn't have a problem with it at all. It didn't really mess up the story in any way, so I ain't mad. Anyway, back to the little details. I loved when Hugh unleashes the bees during dinner on accident, and Claire and her creepy mouth on the back of her head. I know that Bronn is a little bit older in the books, I think, but I love the portrayal of her in the movie. I think that the actress was just like a perfect fit for her, and she brought so much sass to Bronwyn, and I loved it. I know we don't have Horace projecting his dreams in the book, but I still kind of liked that aspect in the movie. And I just love that basically every time he was on screen, there was something mentioned about his love for clothes, and it just gave me so much life. One of my favorite scenes in the movie was the loop reset. It was just so freaking cool. The music during it was awesome, and just the whole aesthetic of it was just so pleasing. It was aesthetically pleasing. The dead sheep ordeal that happens, I think, happened a little bit sooner in the movie, because I think that Jacob has gone to the house like 2 or 3 times before that came into play, but I understand that they had to move the story a little bit quicker. I love the moment when Jacob returns to the house the next day and Bronwyn just greets him by picking him up and twirling him around. It was just such a sweet moment. We go from a sweet moment to a creepy moment because the Victor scene was creepy. I wasn't sure if Victor was even going to be included in the movie, but Bronn's reaction to the whole ordeal was so different in the movie than it was in the book. Because in the book, she was like so pushy about Enoch actually bringing her brother back to life, where in the movie, she's like devastated that he would even do such a thing. But I don't blame her. He has no eyes and he's scary. That scene when Miss Peregrine goes and sits on his bed and he's got this like single tear just laying there and she clings on to him. That was kind of a heartbreaking scene in a very disturbing way. The underwater boat scene between Emma and Jacob was A+. Visuals on point here, folks. I really like the added scene of the hollow that killed Victor coming back and Miss Peregrine slaying it. It just goes to show like how orderly everything is and how just on top of it Miss Peregrine is and how she just keeps everything in line. So Jacob goes back to the modern day and he finds that Augie has been killed and his eyeballs are missing, which makes me believe that he was peculiar, because the only reason a hollow would feed on his eyeballs is if he was peculiar, right? Am I wrong here? Samuel L. Jackson's portrayal of Baron was really interesting. I feel like for the most part he did a fantastic job, but I just feel like they kind of dumbed down Baron in the movie. Like, I never really felt terrified when Baron was on screen, and that's not necessarily Samuel L. Jackson's fault. It could be the direction he was given, or it could be the script. I loved when Baron gets to the house and he's like barking orders and Miss Peregrine is not having it. She's like, you hush, this is my house. I tell the kids what to do. You ain't got no authority here. I got so emotional when Miss Peregrine is like hugging everybody and saying goodbye to everybody, and she's like, it has been my privilege to care for you all, and I'm just like, my heart can't take it. Another really heartbreaking moment for me is when Jacob takes the call and it's his grandfather on the other line. That scene, it just broke me. I know that that was an added in scene, but I loved it, and it was so emotional. I loved the house hollow battle scene. That was epic and intense. Did anybody else have a fear that one of the peculiar kids was just gonna go flying off the house? Because it was like raining, and the roof is like slanted, and I was like, they're just gonna slide right off of that sucker. So we have the boat scene, which again is very different in the movie than it is in the book, but I loved it. It might be one of my favorite scenes from the movie just because of how epic it was. Everyone had some kind of role in getting that boat above water, and it just gave me chills. Like, the scale of that scene was massive. But after this scene is where we really go off the page when it comes to this being a book to movie adaptation. Up until this point, we had a really solid adaptation. Like, obviously there were things that had been changed, but this is when it gets kind of wacky. I just didn't really like the plan that they had set up, and I hated that Abe was going to be alive in the end. Not because I wanted Abe to die in the first place, but I feel like Abe dying in the beginning really set the tone for the story and kind of drives Jacob to like go find the Peculiars and to figure this all out. And bringing him back to life just felt really off, and I hated that. And I know that obviously it's great that Abe's back and he's alive, but his death just completely sets the tone for the story. And while the skeleton scene was a lot of fun and I enjoyed it, it still just felt so wacky and out of place. I did like seeing Tim Burton's cameo though, but why didn't Ransom get a cameo? He deserved a cameo. Also, how did you guys feel about Olive and Enoch's little romance they had going there? I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it. After I had seen the movie the first time, I was with Emma from Emma Books and she pointed this out to me. Baron says at one point in the movie that the only thing he can't change when he transforms into other people is his eyes. And yet in that scene when he's disguised as Jacob, he has Jacob's eyes. Like, did he just have contacts in his pockets that he just pulled out really quick and threw on his eyeballs that were the exact same color as Jacob's? I think there might have been a little bit of a plot hole there, just saying. Either way though, that scene when the hollow gouges out Baron's eyes was sickening. I was surprised it went there, but it went there. I love that in the end, Jacob shoots the hollow when it actually counts. Every other time when he was like shooting at Baron, he was just so off. I'm not gonna lie, one scene that I would have loved to have seen from the book in the movie was how in the end of the book, all the Peculiars showcase themselves to Jacob's father. And I just feel like that would have been such a comedic scene in the movie because the father in the movie just brought so much humor to the story, and I feel like that just would have been an extra hilarious scene. But instead we got like 45 minutes of Tim Burton playing around with this world, which is fine. I don't know, I just feel like Hollow City is gonna be hard to make, especially because in the end they had Miss Peregrine, but if you've read Hollow City and you've read Library of Souls, then you'll know what I'm thinking right now. I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't read those two books. I do hope that they end up making Hollow City and Library of Souls, but things just happen that I feel like would completely affect the story of Hollow City and the story of Library of Souls. So I don't know, I would still really like to see Tim Burton's take on those stories. But either way, those are all my thoughts, opinions, and feels on the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children book to movie adaptation. I was pretty dang satisfied with this adaptation. Obviously, like I said throughout this review, it wasn't perfect, but I still really enjoyed it. And I'll definitely watch it time and time again. You guys should let me know down below what you guys thought of the movie. I'd love to hear all your thoughts. If you like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so click subscribe if you want to be notified for when I post new videos. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye, chew. I was surprised. That scene when Miss... I love when Barris...